Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new. My name is Kristen, and this is my booktube, where we're gonna talk all about books. And as you may have noticed, we are in a different filming location today. We are in my living room. I normally film in my bedroom, but we have had some sick dogs recently, which have taken their toll on my bedspread, and also my room just generally is a mess. And I don't feel like cleaning it. It is currently 6:30 p.m. on Friday night, and I upload Saturday at noon. So we are under a time crunch, and rather than spend some time cleaning up my room and putting my duvet back together so that it looks presentable, we're just gonna film here for now. So a little bit of a different view today, but we're gonna work with it. Today's video was actually requested in the comments of one of my previous videos. That is my top 5 favorite thrillers of recent years. So this list is only going to include thrillers. I'm not going to include any murder mysteries or any horrors in this list. If those are things that you would be interested in hearing my opinions on, feel free to leave those comments down below and I will add them to my list of videos that I want to make. I also received a second request to do romance reading recommendations, so that is also on my list. But if there are any other genres that you would be interested in hearing my opinions on, please leave them in the comments down below and I will add them to my list. So without further ado, let's just hop right into it and get to my top 5 favorite thrillers of recent years. So at number 5, we have The Guest List by Lucy Foley. This is one that I read late 2021. This book centers around a wedding that is taking place on a small island off the coast of Ireland and has multiple viewpoints of the events of the night unfolding. Straight away at the beginning of the book, we know that someone has died, but we don't know who died or who the murderer is. The story is told from multiple points of view, including the bride, the groom, the best man, the wedding planner, and the sister of the bride. So there is a lot of different vantage points of the night going on as it is unfolding. The groom is an up-and-coming television star and the bride is a flourishing publisher for a magazine. And though they seem like they have it all on paper, we learn throughout the multiple points of view and as the night unfolds that there are some dark secrets that they are trying their best to hide. As you would expect on this island, cell phone reception is spotty at best. So not only are the people who are attending this wedding essentially cut off from communication from the outside world, there is also a bad storm approaching that knocks out the power. I personally think that this was a really good thriller. It had me on my toes the whole time. The multiple points of view, especially if you're listening to it as an audiobook, are really captivating and enthralling because the narrators do such a great job. And there are different narrators for each different character, so there's never really a doubt of who is speaking at any given time. It's been a couple years because I did read it in 2021, but I don't believe that I guessed correctly who the murderer was. I did also read The Hunting Party after I read The Guest List, and it's very similar in the way that it's set up, but I personally liked The Guest List more. The Hunting Party was fun, don't get me wrong, I did enjoy it, but The Guest List just had that extra creepiness factor to it, and I did not guess the twist in that one, and I believe, if I remember correctly, I did guess the twist in The Hunting Party. I have not read The Paris Apartments yet, I do own it, but I haven't read that one. So eventually I will read The Paris Apartment as well, but as of right now, The Guest List is my favorite Lucy Foley book. And that is why it comes number 5 on this list. Next up, we have Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. So this was the first Riley Sager book that I read, and I believe it was the first book that I read in 2022, or at least the first book I started in 2022, because I remember I literally started it on New Year's Day. So Lock Every Door centers around this iconic Gothic looking apartment building in New York City, right on the edge of Central Park. Think of the Dakota. That's the kind of iconic apartment building that we're talking about here. It is huge, it's Gothic, it's right across from Central Park, has gargoyles decorating the sides, parapets, flying buttresses probably, I don't remember. It is an iconic New York landmark. And our main character gets the opportunity to be paid to apartment sit in the Bartholomew. Soon after she moves in, she starts to make an acquaintance with the girl who lives directly below her, and they start passing notes through this dumbwaiter that is connecting their two apartments. Very creepy, I know. But as you would expect, this apartment building is home to very wealthy people. There are doctors, there are movie stars, there are old money people that live here. Like, his money is in molasses kind of old, you know? Like, I'm talking his family probably made their money in the gold rush kind of old. So you can imagine how Jules feels kind of out of place in this really luxurious apartment complex. She is not very well off in general. She had just broke up with her boyfriend when she landed this job. She was essentially couch surfing up until she got this job. Pretty soon after Jules moves in and she starts becoming acquainted with the other permanent residents and the other people who are apartment sitting like her, things start to feel off. She begins to notice that some of the people that she has become close with have just seemingly disappeared with no rhyme or reason as to why. She also starts to hear things in the apartment at night. Jules is well aware, as pretty much any other New Yorker would be, of the ghost stories that surround an old building like the Bartholomew. The building is so old, it has its own legends behind it, its own scary stories that have spawned from it. And as Jules settles into her new life in this apartment building, she begins to think that maybe these ghost stories aren't as far-fetched as she wants to believe. She begins seeing mysterious things, hearing things go bump in the night, that kind of thing, you know, your classic haunted apartment kind of story. This story has a dual timeline, so it's told from the point of view of Jules as she is moving into the apartment and living through the couple weeks that she is there. And then it is also mixed with chapters from present day Jules, who flees the apartment in a hurry and ends up being hit by a car in the process and lands herself in the hospital. So we are going through these two dual timelines until they eventually meet up towards the end, and then we get the full picture of what is going on inside of the walls of the Bartholomew. This book was a really fun read for me. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It creeped me out. It gave me the chills down my spine that I look for in a psychological thriller such as this, and it stuck with me. I read this book over a year ago at this point, and it is still pretty vivid in my memory. I have also read Home Before Dark by Riley Sager, which is also a really good psychological thriller. I really enjoyed that book a lot. But for me personally, I thought Lock Every Door was just, you know, a little bit more creepy, a little bit better than Home Before Dark, but they're both great thrillers in my opinion. So I guess Home Before Dark is kind of like an honorable mention in this video, if you will. So for all those reasons, that is why it is number 4 on my list. In the number 3 spot, we have Daisy Darker. I did get this book through Book of the Month, but I ended up listening to the audiobook rather than reading the physical book. And it was quite the ride, let me tell you. So the story centers around Daisy Darker, as you would expect, as well as the rest of her family. And it takes place during her grandmother's 80th birthday celebration. This one had a lot of really good twists that I did not see coming, especially the biggest one. Took a while for it to dawn on me what was actually happening. And once it did, it really made me want to go back and reread the book with the full knowledge of what is going on. In the novel, Daisy Darker and her entire family come together at her grandmother's house in what I believe is Cornwall in England. I could be wrong on that, let me double check. Doesn't say a location in the synopsis. Yeah, it just says in Nana's crumbling Gothic house on a tiny tidal island. So, doesn't specifically say in the synopsis, but if my memory serves me correctly, I think it was in Cornwall, Devon kind of area on the coast in England. It is definitely in England, I know that much. When the tide comes in, the house is essentially isolated from the rest of the area and becomes an island, and you cannot leave the house and get to civilization for the next 8 hours until the tide goes out. So everyone shows up at Nana's house for this 80th birthday party, right? And each one of them is a character. They all have their own baggage, their own secrets, their own personal conflicts with each other that all come to light during these 8 hours that they are stuck in Nana's house on her birthday. So they all get together and they are settling in for the night. And when the clock strikes midnight, Nana's body is found dead in the kitchen with the beginning of a poem scrawled on the wall. And an hour later, there is another family member that is found dead. They are all trapped on this island while someone is killing them one by one in a very Agatha Christie and Then There Were None kind of style. The Darkers then have to reckon with their pasts and come to grips with all of the past deeds that they have done and come to grips with the fate that lies ahead of them. Anyone that knows me knows that my favorite Agatha Christie book is And Then There Were None. It is one of my favorite books of all time. I think it is a great murder mystery. It holds up really well thematically and writing wise. Title, not so much. If you do any research onto And Then There Were None, you will find that it has gone through several title changes because yikes. It was really bad for a while, you know, it was really bad. So they have rightfully so changed the rhyme that is the central focus point of And Then There Were None several times, as well as the title. But all of that aside, the story itself is one of my favorite murder mysteries that I've ever read. And I think that Daisy Darker does a great job of really tying in those elements from And Then There Were None that made it so iconic and so mysterious, and just kind of cranked it up a notch and added to the discourse around the story. I thought it was great. I think I ended up rating it 4.5 stars when I read it last year. And the big twist in it, I did not see coming until like just before it happened. And I slowly had the realization of what was going on. And I was just really, really floored, honestly. So that is why it is number 3 on my list. Moving on to number 2, we have The Whisper Man by Alex North. The Whisper Man centers around Tom Kennedy and his young son, Jake, who, after the sudden passing of his wife, decides that it is best for him and his son both if they get a fresh start in a new city called Featherbank. Little do they know that this quiet suburban English town has a dark history of its own that they are completely unaware of. 20 years prior to Tom and Jake moving into their house, a serial killer who abducted and murdered small children was on the loose and wreaking havoc in this small town. Until he was finally caught and his name revealed, he was referred to in the local newspapers as the Whisper Man because it was rumored that he would whisper to children at night in their windows. It's giving me chills just thinking about it because it's so creepy. Oh my God. Like, it's really best experienced as an audiobook. Not only is the narration great, it's Christopher Eccleston. If there are any Doctor Who fans out there, he's the 9th Doctor and he does a fantastic job narrating it. But just listening to the narrator describe the Whisper Man and describe what he would whisper to children in their windows just sent all of the chills down my spine. Freaks me out now even thinking about it. It's very creepy. I've said this before in other videos that I've made about thrillers that I really enjoy, but Alex North does a fantastic job of creating just a viscerally creepy environment. There are so many instances where something as small as a moth in a garage that would be inconsequential if I were to see one in my garage now, in the context of the story, just becomes so much more terrifying because of the surrounding context within the story. So the Whisper Man, whose legal name was Frank Carter, would whisper into children's rooms at night through their open windows and lure them outside where he would take them and then murder them. He amassed 5 victims in the time that he was on the loose and was eventually caught, arrested, tried, and convicted of all 5 murders, and is long in jail by the time that Tom and Jake move into Featherbank. This is meant to be pretty much ancient history at that point in time. However, there wouldn't be a story if things didn't start kicking off again, you know? Just as Tom and Jake start to settle into their new lives in their new home and are adjusting to their new lives, another boy around Jake's age vanishes from Featherbank. The disappearance has an unnerving resemblance to the Whisperman abductions that occurred 20 years earlier. This causes old rumors that Frank Carter worked with an accomplice to resurface. The detective that worked the Whisperman case and is now working these other disappearances has to go revisit Frank Carter in prison, where he tries to get him to confess to any accomplice that he may have so that he can find the little boy before it is too late. As all of this is starting to develop while Tom and Jake are settling into their home, Tom notices that Jake is acting strangely, and Jake confides to his father that he is hearing whispering at his window at night. Oh, I'm not kidding when I say, can you even see? I have chills all over my arms right now. I don't know if you can even see that, but gives me chills. Even just talking about it gives me chills. Freaks me out. Children drawing pictures, children talking about hearing people whisper to them, children talking about ghosts that visit them at night. All of those things, very, very creepy to me. So this is obviously a book that has stuck with me for a while. I read this book in 2021, so it has been a hot minute since I read it, and I have not reread it yet. I kind of want to now, but it's a very viscerally creepy story that sticks with me. And even just thinking about it is enough to make me get chills, clearly. I have also read Alex North's other book, which is called The Shadows, which takes place in the same universe as The Whisperman. There are some characters that cross over into The Shadows. That one was also decent, but The Whisperman just had that extra creep factor for me that really just pushed it over the edge and made it stick in my memory for all of the right creepy reasons. I mean, even the cover is creepy. Like, tell me that this isn't creepy. Does this not make you think that this is a scary book? Because it sure made me think it was a scary book. Alrighty, and number one on my personal favorite thrillers list is The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. So, if you haven't heard about The Silent Patient, I don't know where you've been for the last few years, but I feel like it's been all over. Maybe that's just me because, you know, power of suggestion. If you're thinking about it, you're likely to see it more. But I have read this book, I have reread this book, and it still holds up as my favorite psychological thriller that I've read in the last couple years. So The Silent Patient is told from a dual perspective of sorts. So the story is told from the point of view of Alicia Berenson through her diary entries leading up to the murder of her husband Gabriel, as well as through the point of view of Theo, who is a psychotherapist that works at the Grove Mental Hospital where Alicia has been since her husband was murdered. Alicia is a well-known painter living in London who seemingly has a great life. She is married to a photographer named Gabriel, who from her diary seems that she is absolutely enamored with, and he is also deeply in love with her. They have this beautiful house in Hampstead Heath in London. I believe that's where it is. I think it's in Hampstead Heath. It may be somewhere else, but I think it's Hampstead Heath. And her diaries recount the months leading up to the night that she shoots Gabriel 5 times in the face with a shotgun. After Gabriel's murder, she never speaks another word. Since she never speaks again after the murder, she is declared mentally unfit to stand trial, and she is sent to the Grove where she meets Theo. Theo is convinced that he can get her to speak again. He starts at the Grove and makes it his mission to get Alicia to open up to him so that once and for all, the mystery of what happened to Gabriel on that night can be solved. If it's not clear enough from that description, Alicia is the silent patient. Because of the mystery surrounding the crime and her refusal to speak afterward, there becomes this public fascination with her, and the price of her art skyrockets, and she becomes almost like a fictionalized character. And as you would expect, there are many people who speculate what happened between her and Gabriel, why she shot her husband in the face that many times. There are a lot of armchair detectives trying to solve the mystery themselves. Theo's determination to get Alicia to speak again leads him down a dark and twisting path that takes its toll on him, his marriage, his social life, and his mind as well. Theo becomes pretty much consumed with the task at hand and becomes essentially obsessed with breaking through to Alicia. And the first time I read this, the twist, did not even know it was happening until it was like halfway done. I don't even know if that can make sense, but read the book and you'll know what I mean. I don't want to give literally anything away about this book. This book is so much better if you just go in not knowing anything about it. I would not recommend reading any reviews about it or really getting to know any deeper than what I've just described, because that will make the reading experience so much better for you. I would say go into this book as unknowing as possible. Go into it as a blank slate, because it makes the reading experience so much better. I think that this is a book that was even better the second read through, because I knew already the twists that were going to take place. It gave the second read through a different perspective, and it really made the second read through even more creepy and more thrilling than it was the first time. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it there. That's the most that I'm willing to say on it, other than it was fantastic both times. I enjoyed it thoroughly both times, and I rated it 5 stars both times because I thought it was just so well written. I thought it was so well thought out. And the characters were so well developed, in my opinion, that you really got to know Theo and got to know Alicia on a deeper level. Even though Alicia's point of view is really only told through her diary entries, you really got to know her fairly well and really got to understand her as well. This is a book that I recommend to pretty much anyone. Anyone who asks me what my favorite thriller is, this is the book that I can talk nonstop about. I love this book so much, and I think that it is a fantastic psychological thriller. And I know that the film rights have been bought by like Brad Pitt or someone like that a couple years ago. I know that the pandemic and everything really threw a wrench into a lot of film production, but I really hope that they're still planning on making this into a movie, because I think it would be a fantastic movie. If they stick close to the storyline in the book and they don't divert too much, it essentially played out like a movie in my head, and I could see it being a fantastic psychological thriller film if they stay true to the book. That's the caveat there. Alex Michaelides does have another book that's centered in the same universe, if you will, that is called The Maidens, and I have read that one twice as well. And that one is also a decent thriller. It doesn't really hold a candle to me to The Silent Patient though. I really think The Silent Patient is the superior book of the two. The Maidens was still good, and I still read it twice, so I enjoyed it enough to read it a second time. But of the two, The Silent Patient is definitely my favorite, and I honestly wouldn't even include The Maidens in my top 5, even though I did still enjoy it. I just know that The Silent Patient for me was way better. It ticked all of my boxes that I look for in thrillers. It was viscerally creepy, sent shivers down my spine. It was written really well. The characters were quite believable. I was so invested in the story. I wanted to listen to it all the time. There are scenes where people are being followed throughout central London in this book, and the attention to detail in the geography of London is immaculate. As someone who has lived in London, and the school that I went to was smack dab in the middle of central London, I was very familiar with those areas that the characters were walking through and passing through. And the whole description of, I went down the Strand and then right on Shaftesbury Avenue and past this theater and then right onto this street. All of that just really added to the story for me, because that is a path that I can follow in my head and really get more into the story, because I'm able to really visualize the place that they're talking about and the path that they're weaving through central London. And I know that's not something that's really applicable to everyone. You have to be really familiar with that area of London to be able to follow where the characters are going in that portion of the book. But it also adds that extra layer of detail for people like me and people who live in central London, who are very familiar with those streets, know how crowded they are, know how easy it is to just blend into the crowd and to follow someone down these streets and into a pub. So yeah, that is my top favorite thriller book that I recommend to pretty much everyone who's looking for a really good psychological thriller. Once again, these are just my opinions and my current opinions. They are subject to change. If you have a favorite thriller that you think I would enjoy, leave it down below. I'm always looking to read new thrillers and get some new favorites in my mix. There's one that I'm reading right now that is pretty good. I have less than an hour left of the audiobook and it's pretty wild. I'm gonna talk about it in my wrap-up video next week, so look forward to that. But whew, it's a doozy. It's definitely a doozy. And yeah, so that is the end of my top 5 favorite thrillers. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's a little different than other videos that I've done in the past, not just setting wise, but also content wise. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, leave a like down below and subscribe while you're down there. If you guys have any suggestions or requests of videos that you would like to see me do, maybe other top 5 favorite videos like this, leave those down in the comments below as well. I'm always open to suggestions, and if there's a video you want to see, I'm definitely willing to make it. So just let me know and I will add it to my queue of videos that I need to make. I think that's about it. My battery is dying, so I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!